Hi there, and welcome to Jill's Quest for Riches. Now, in today's episode, we are going to look into what financial independence actually is, what it means, what it entails. So, first off, we'll start with a general definition. Then, I'll take you through some of the different levels of financial independence, and we wrap up the episode with some afterthoughts, some general comments. If you're ready, I'm ready. Let's go. So let's start with defining financial independence. Well, I would say that you can consider yourself to be financially independent when you don't have a need to be employed or you don't depend on others to have enough income to pay for your living expenses. Now, that's the definition. You might think like, okay, so then what income are we talking about? If it's not employment, if I don't get a check from somebody else? Well, we're talking mainly about passive income. If you don't know what passive income is, be sure to check out my previous video on this topic. In this definition, what we can also find is the word dependent on your employment or others. Well, dependent can also have different gradations. Is it very dependent, only mildly dependent, nearly not dependent, or completely independent? And on the other hand, you have your living expenses. How do we interpret this, right? Are we talking about the real essentials, like living very frugally, or are we talking about a luxurious lifestyle? So there's different ways and different levels to financial independence, and that's what I'm going to dig into now. Now, when we talk about different levels of financial independence, there's actually a lot of literature out there with also different explanations. I've seen scales of 5, 7, or maybe I think I even read an article about 12 levels of financial independence. For this article, I will be taking a 7-level scale because I think it makes the most sense, but of course, you can feel free to look up for other interpretations, other scales. The general idea will always be the same nonetheless. In these different scales, you might also find slightly different definitions on what is mandatory, what is not in this level, what is maybe in the next level. So it can differ a little bit from scale to scale, but as I said, the general idea stays the same. Level 1 on the financial independence scale is financial dependency, and we all start out at this level, namely when we are kids. We are fully financially dependent on our parents, right? But you could also be in this level when you have expenses higher than your monthly income, or even worse, when your debt payments are higher than your income after tax. Level 2 on the scale is financial solvency. Now, when are you at this level? Well, when you no longer rely on anyone else to financially support you. It means that your income exceeds your expenses and that you're no longer accumulating debt. So in the first scenario, level 1, when you're a kid, you're not necessarily accumulating debt, but maybe you've acquired a student loan afterwards and then you're accumulating debt because you're not really paying it off yet. Or when, due to some financial mismanagement or unfortunate turn of events, you've ended up again in level 1 and you come back to level 2, then again it's the point where you're not building up any debt anymore, but you start paying it off. Level 3 on the scale is financial stability, and it's basically the same as level 2, solvency, but with a few extra things, a few extra steps. One of them is you've paid off any credit cards or personal loans or any high interest loans that you have outstanding. Whilst in level 2 you were just not accumulating any debt anymore, in level 3 you've actually paid off the bulk of your debt. You might still have a home mortgage loan outstanding, but apart from that, nothing else, especially not the high interest debts. And you've also established a safety net, little emergency savings funds. For whenever some bad situation would occur, you can fall back on that. You're not one paycheck away from bankruptcy anymore. So this already gives quite some emotional stability as well. Mental freedom. You're not constantly worried about the next paycheck. You know, if something bad happens, I'm at least safe. This is why they call this level financial stability. Then we come at level 4. and this is called free agency. When you're in this level, you can basically work and live how and where you want. You still need to work, you still need to be employed, but you have a lot more freedom in how and how much and where. To reach this level, you will have eliminated all your debt, including your mortgage, and you have put enough savings, investments, and pension savings aside so that you can actually quit your job at a moment's notice. You'll be perfectly fine. You have enough reserve, let's say, for 3 or 6 months of living expenses, way more than you need to bridge the gap before you find another job. And at this point, you should already start noticing that with every level, you actually acquire also some extra peace of mind. Like we already had level 3, where you have this starting a safety net, and here at level 4, you actually don't have to do this particular job. You get the freedom to just switch jobs. It's not gonna hurt you in any way. You can bridge a gap between the two jobs. So that gives a lot of freedom. It doesn't mean you have to change your job, but at least you know that you're doing this particular job because you like it. You don't have to stay here. Level 5, financial security. When you reach this level, well, when your pensions and your investing income and your saving income can cover for your basic needs for the rest of your life. Now, the essential part here is basic needs. We're just talking about having a roof over your head, having water, having heating, internet, electricity, basic foods, no fancy restaurants, basic clothes, no brand or designer shoes. So it's not a fancy lifestyle, but a basic lifestyle that you could maintain indefinitely if needed. Now, ideally, you attain this level 5 financial security before you actually retire. Why is that? This is the first point from which you can just live from the income of your investments. Whilst if you would retire before, in one way or another, you will be taking always a little part of what you've put aside. A little chunk of your reserve would be consumed every year to bridge the difference between the income from your reserve and your actual expenses. And that means that there's a time limit on how long you can last. Now, maybe that time limit is 100 years and you are already 50. Well, fine, it will work out. But you don't want to take it too narrowly either, because the last thing you want to do is being 80 or 90, definitely not fit for the employment market anymore and running out of money. Now we come at level 6, financial independence. Yes, we're only at level 6, there's still level 7, but this is already called financial independence. Now, what does it mean? Well, it's basically level 5, so you can foresee in your basic needs, plus a little bit more. Like you can fund your chosen standard of living, not necessarily the most basic one, and you can afford some extras here and there, and that's when we talk about financial independence. The last level on my scale here today is financial abundance, level 7. This is level 6, but then with even more income. So you can do more or less whatever you want. Well, not buy a yacht every year, but you can really do a lot of stuff. And you can choose to share your wealth with others. You can choose to just live luxuriously for the rest of your life. This is the last level, financial abundance. And of course, you could even split this up in how much abundance would you need. But we're at the point where you can live definitely above standard. Alright, so hear me out on some afterthoughts, some main remarks that I want to give you concerning this financial independence concept and the different levels. When it comes to different levels, this is just a framework. So it's a set of rules, but in reality, it's not necessarily as strict. For example, I can easily imagine that you would still be paying off your mortgage even though you're already in level 7, whilst it's a requirement to get into level, I think, 4. On the other hand, paying off all your credit card debt, okay, it's high interest debt, but it might still make sense to use your credit card even though you're already at level 6 or level 7, because the credit card, it gives very often extra insurances whenever you do online purchases. You can be gathering points in one way or another, which results in extra perks, extra benefits. And as long as you pay the amount due at the end of the month, you actually never stack any real debt or loan, but you still reap the benefit. So that's actually an even better use of credit cards. What I think you should also know is that it's quite important to have a goal, and even more important so to have a plan to work towards it. This hugely increases your chances of actually achieving any of these levels. If you leave it at just a vague concept, never doing any calculations or setting any goals, it's way more difficult to reach the next level. I also think, and I'm not speaking from experience here, but it looks like getting from one level to the next gradually becomes easier and easier the further along you go. Simply because you start having more and more available income that you can put into extra investments that will bring up in the long term. I also think that just the knowledge, the idea of being financially independent is hugely liberating and an empowering feeling or thought. You don't necessarily have to retire, but just the basic signs that you don't need to work, you're just working because you want to, is putting you, giving a whole new perspective in how you stand in life. And it gives you the liberty of allocating time on what you think is important. Maybe you want to work, then it's perfectly fine to continue allocating time on that. Maybe you want to do something that pays way less but gives you way more fulfillment, perfectly fine as well. It just gives you that freedom, that power. And it even gives you just a chance to be able to make those choices. That's also my main remark here. You don't need to retire. It doesn't mean because you're at level 7 that you need to retire, but it's just an option. So that's it for today. I hope you liked the video. If you did, please click that like button. If you want to follow me on my quest for financial independence, Jill's Quest for Riches, what's in the name, or you just want to see more videos like these, be sure to hit the subscribe button as well as the notifications bell so that you get notifications whenever there's a new episode out there. See you in the next one. Bye.